What's up, y'all? We about to get started, okay? It's officially 11 o'clock. The Not For Sale event is live. My name is Nia Jones, founder and CEO of Not For Sale Youth. And today we're going to be talking about human... Hold on. My name is Nia. I forgot I had the other computer on. Excuse the ghetto-ness. Y'all know how Wi-Fi be playing. So, hold on. Okay. So we good now. So Zion, you on here, right? Let's get Zion on here. Let's bring the team on so y'all can see everybody. What's up, Zion?
Hey y'all!
What's
Happy New Year
up, girl?
anniversary.
How you been?
I've been good actually. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. You excited? We celebrating our 1 year, man. 1 year. Can you believe
Yes,
it?
that
We
is
was here last year. First event.
yes.
All
All the
right.
trials and tribulations through this year too.
For real. It was tough
Yeah,
with all the COVID and, people losing folk, but we still standing, you know what I'm saying?
right. As we should.
Still standing. So tell people why you decide to join Not For Sale. Like, why do you think we need to talk about human trafficking and mental health?
I joined Not for Sale because my mother always like talked about human trafficking and how important it was, but it really wasn't on the like spectrum of people talking about it and things like that. And if you know, I was a part of the Junior States Attorney program. So basically my essay to get into that program was about how human trafficking is swept under the rug and why I want to become a lawyer and things like that. And just basically human trafficking is basically the main reason why I want to get into law because there's so many victims out here, women, girls, males, all that who suffer from this. So it's just something that's swept under the rug that I want to bring to light and things like that. And mental health is because I really never knew about it, so I want to educate others that's coming behind me or whatever, so they know about mental health and they can have good mental health and know like how to break the generational curses when it comes to bad mental health. So yeah.
That sounds so good. I remember when I was a part of the PAGE program and I had to write an essay on like the work that I do in the community and how I would like to make a change and like, all about the delegates and the House of Representatives. It was really good. And so the name of this event is called We Choose Life. Okay, and we want all y'all to choose life because mental health matters. Your mental health matters. You got to be in the best state so you can do the best that you can do to your ability. It's all about having positive thoughts, embracing yourself, loving yourself, and you gotta love on others too because you gotta be around people that love you. You gotta surround yourself by positive energy. Okay? It's about to be 11:05. We already 5 minutes in. So we about to bring on our first guest speaker. Most of y'all know her. She's a returning guest from last year's event. Her name is Dr. K. That's what we call her. She works at University of Maryland School of Social Work. She's also with Healing Youth Alliance in Zion and I. And most people in this chat who are heartbeats are also part of Healing Youth Alliance. So let's welcome Dr. K. How you doing?
Good morning and congratulations. This is so exciting. A year. That is awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. And good to see all of my friends and family on here. Love to see all the names popping up. Good morning, Zion. Nice to see you. It is so good. And Ania, I cannot tell you how proud I am of the amazing work that you do. You are truly a leader.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I was honored. Did you want me to go ahead and start talking about the stuff you asked me to present on?
Yes, ma'am. It's all on you, Dr. K.
All right, I'm here for it. I was honored that Ania asked me to come and present for this morning. And she really asked me to talk a little bit about there's life after trauma and why we choose life. Because I think sometimes people, they hear about trauma, they experience trauma, and then it's this idea of, well, if I've experienced trauma, then my whole life is going to be negative and I'm going to have all of these negative outcomes. But I'm here to tell you and remind you all that there can be life after trauma, and not just life, but life with strength and with beauty and growth. And so we're going to talk about a couple of different ideas as part of this conversation. It is going to be a conversation. You know, I want that interaction. And then we will move on. All right. So first, we're going to talk about what is trauma, just to make sure we're all on the same page. And you know, I expect my higher youth on here to show up, right? I better not ask questions and people are like, I don't know. Y'all know. So we have 3 E's when we talk about trauma. The first is the event that happened. So in the chat, go ahead and put in what are some events that might happen that could be considered a trauma. And you're just going to give examples, just an event that could be trauma or traumatic. While we're waiting for people to type, Zion and Nia, you want to give some examples?
Yeah, I was typing too, but I was thinking about witnessing substance abuse from anybody, but mostly like parents and family and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Witnessing substance abuse. What else? Nia, what you got?
I see someone who says losing someone that's close to you, and that's a personal one to me, like losing someone that you know you spend your day with, or just someone that you enjoy talking to and hanging out with. Like that's something that can put a lot on you. So like I feel like that's something that can be traumatic for anyone. That could be even a pet too, because you connect with your animals as well. Like so anything to me, trauma is anything that affects you personally or just affects you just mentally, emotionally, and physically, that makes you not be the best that you can be. But again, like we said, there's life after trauma. You know, you got to work on yourself and work through it. But, you know, acknowledging that it happened. So it's a
That's
whole
right.
good stuff that's going in there. Natural disasters, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And thank you, Lamar and Ania, that when we talk about losing somebody, that can be lots of different losses. It could be somebody who just rolls out and we don't know why. It could be, you know, we lose a parent with divorce. It could be somebody who passed away. It could be somebody who's incarcerated. It could be somebody who overdoses. There's lots of different ways that we could lose somebody, but that is an event. I see Stephanie put in molestation. Absolutely. Darlene, I see you said house fire on Christmas Day that took the life of my mother. Darlene, I am so sorry. Condolences for that loss. Nicole points out violence done towards you. Absolutely. It can be violence towards us. It can also be violence towards others. And so if we witness somebody get hurt, that can also be trauma. Natural disasters. So something like, you know, a tornado or a fire or hurricane. Think about Hurricane Katrina. Like those are examples of natural disasters that absolutely can be a traumatic event. Witnessing someone being shot in front of you, 100%. If you're, you know, out in the community or you're at home and suddenly somebody gets shot, it doesn't have to be that it physically affects you. It could be that you've seen it happen or that it emotionally impacts you. So great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. So now the next part of the definition of trauma is we've talked about the event, but then we talk about, well, what did you experience when that event happened? So you could have 5 people who see somebody get shot, right? Or you could have 5 people who experience a house fire. Well, you could have 5 different experiences. You could have somebody feeling mad, you could have somebody feeling sad, you could have somebody feeling shame, right? All these different feelings could be in there. So what are some feelings that people might have when they have experienced a trauma? And I've named a couple. So we have anger, we have shame, we have sadness. What are some other, it could even be thoughts. What are some thoughts and feelings that may come up when you experience trauma? Oh,
I
you
know.
got a request to record. You got it?
Oh yeah, it's being recorded, guys. It's all this is going to be recorded, so y'all can always go back and watch this just in case if you missed something. But I know one of the feelings that I know that I have felt before was guilt. Like sometimes you feeling like it might be your fault when it's not your fault when something happens to you. So I personally experienced that myself. So and I also see Miss Payne said fear, like sometimes like when you go through stuff and like repeating it, and you don't want to go through that again. So that might create fear for you might not doing that again, or like you might be in a position where you might, step back due to that fear.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So fear, you may feel like this was my fault, especially kids. That's a normal experience because especially young children, little kids sing songs like Rain, Rain, Go Away because it's a magical thought. Like if I just sing the right song, it'll stop raining. So when somebody is young and somebody passes away or they see somebody get hurt, then young children especially blame themselves and say, well, maybe it's because it's something I did. I also see fear that it could happen again. It could be hurt, depression, withdrawal. Why did I let this happen again? That blaming yourself, feeling of shame. And that is a very common feeling, especially with sexual assault and sexual abuse. And part of it is that society, the justice system, they put that blame on the survivors many times. And they say, well, you saw how they dressed, or why were you out at 2 o'clock in the morning? Or why did you go out? But yet they don't say that when some guy's walking down the street and gets robbed. Like they don't say, well, why'd you have that wallet in your back pocket? Come on. So that's just sexism, racism, all of the isms that are built into that. And so we as survivors have to be able to fight against that and say, no, it wasn't anybody's fault except for the perpetrator. Okay. So that shame is there, feelings of strife, a lot of anxiety, depression, fear, and helplessness. Absolutely. So these are all excellent answers. And this really gets to the point that, people want to say, well, if you've experienced trauma, this is how you respond. Everybody should feel this way. And it's just not true. It can also be that somebody has thoughts of revenge. Like, oh, you going to do that to me? I got you. And we see that a lot in Baltimore, right? So and so kills my cousin. Well, I might go kill somebody else to get back at that other person. And that is a sense of trying to get revenge, right? Okay, so then we're going to move on to the effect. So the effect means that, okay, so we've experienced the event, which is a trauma. Then we have an experience from that event. So now I may feel depressed or angry or fearful or withdrawn. So now we have to talk about the effect that it could have on us. So like when there was, like Darlene Swain talked about being withdrawn, it could be that you feel withdrawn after an event, right? So the effect, if you're withdrawn, might be, I'm not going to hang out with my friends anymore because I'm withdrawing because of this experience and the event that happened. So what are some ways that trauma could negatively affect somebody? So again, like withdrawing could be, I'm not going to school anymore. That's the effect, right? Being in a car accident, I'm not going to ride in a car anymore. That's the effect, that because of the car accident, now I'm not riding in a car. I see David McNair says, head-on collision with family in our minivan. Felt bad that I didn't go do enough to protect my family from the car hitting us. Yeah, it's very common when we experience a trauma, we automatically go into, well, what could I have done to prevent this from happening? And that's in some ways our brain trying to say, well, we should have more control in life than we do, but it doesn't necessarily work like that. We can't control everything. So yeah, I see low self-esteem, turning to drugs, physical stress on the body. Excellent. Absolutely. And so a lot of times, like when people talk about drug use and drug abuse, they leave out the part of the equation where it's sometimes a way of people trying to self-medicate. Like, I am in so much pain from what I experienced, and society is making it worse by saying it's my fault. And then people are judging me because of the way that I am acting after the assault. So now I'm just going to self-medicate. I'm going to smoke weed every day. I'm going to drink alcohol every day. Maybe I'm going to start using heroin or crack or cocaine because I'm just trying to deal with the pain. Not to mention that we also have a mental health crisis in this country. And so trying to get therapy, it could take you 3 months to be able to access therapy. And so people turn to things to self-medicate. All right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. You guys are doing phenomenal. So you now have the 3 components of trauma: the event, the experience, and the effect. One of the other experiences, and one of the other things that comes up with trauma, in social work, we call it ghosts and angels of the nursery. What that means is trauma can impact relationships, because if somebody has hurt me, then it's very hard for me to trust people again, because they may hurt me as well. So we tend to have two types of people in our lives. We have ghosts and angels. Ghosts are those people who say, well, it was your fault. Well, you deserved it. You deserved it because you're ugly, you're stupid, nobody wants to be with you. You know, this is your fault. You're just like your mother, you're just like your father. Well, I didn't expect anything better for you. Well, this is all because of you and the way you dress and the way, you know, who you went with and, you know, who your friends are, and that you do drugs and alcohol. So therefore, you deserve what you got. Those are your ghosts. And those voices can build, they can feel really loud, and it becomes this pattern of listening to those ghosts. So then when you start to do the work of healing and you start to say, this was an experience, but this is not my future. This doesn't define me as a person. Those ghosts come up and say, yes, it does. This, because this was your fault, you deserved it. And so in the future, this is what your future looks like. So that's where people start to say, maybe I shouldn't choose life because this was my fault. And the ghosts keep telling me I did this and I was at fault. And so this is what my future looks like. But we also have angels. And angels in our nursery are those people who are saying, you are specially made, you are perfectly made, you are wonderful, you are beautiful, you are smart, your future is bright, and you are going to have an amazing life. And so it's so important that when we hear those ghosts in the nursery, that we also look for those angels. And those angels might be your mentor, it might be a teacher, it might be a friend, it may be an auntie. But we got to look for those angels in our nursery and reach out and make sure that we learn from them and that we hear those voices instead of the ghosts. All right. So what do we talk about when we talk about post-traumatic growth? This is where you're talking about choosing life. Trauma does not mean your life is over or that your life will always be awful. It is that you are going to have some positive growth that happens because of the trauma. So how do we get to that? All right. So there's 4 things that we have to do to get to post-traumatic growth. One is try to be optimistic. Now, that doesn't mean we have to be optimistic about everything. There's some things that we might look at and say, I just don't feel hope here. But what do we feel optimistic about? Is it about the song that we're writing? Is it about the painting that we're working on? Is it about the new partner that we have? Could it be about, you know, everything else is a mess, but that social studies class, I'm rocking it. I got an A. I'm going to feel optimistic that in school, this is a strength that I have. So focus on something that you are doing really well, because I guarantee you everyone has something they're doing well at. Identify the things you can control. So everybody in the chat, go ahead and put, what is your strength? What is something you're really good at? Just put one thing. Everybody in here should be able to think of one thing that you're really good at. That's right. I see. Sounds like the differences between evil voices and godly voices. Yep. I hear that thinking on good things can trick your brain for the better. That's right. If you focus on the good, then your brain starts to look at the good even more. So good at writing. Excellent. So we have an author in our midst. I'm going to speak now. Not letting negativity get to me. Absolutely. So being able to say, nope, I'm not today. I'm not going to buy into that today. Listening. Wonderful. So we have a counselor in our midst. Giving good advice. Another counselor in our midst. Excellent. So these are all these wonderful skills that, first of all, you can feel optimistic about. There you go, Aunt Naeem. And also you have control over that. When things feel like they're all negative, that you can focus on things that you're good at. And that gives you control. Also, coping. There's 2 types of coping. There's avoidance, and then there is engaged. So avoidance, that's where we say, well, we're going to deny it happened. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to do drugs and alcohol. Engaged is, it did happen, But I'm going to look at my strengths and I'm going to think about, how am I going to cope with this? So am I going to do mindfulness? Am I going to do meditation? Am I going to do journaling? Am I going to start a nonprofit and help the world be a better place? And that leads to your sense of self. So getting a strong sense of, who are you? What are your gifts? What are the things that you can control? And what are the tools that you're going to use to be able to cope with the experiences you've had? So if all of those things are in place, so you have optimism, control, coping, and a strong sense of self, then that takes you to what you can expect after trauma. Because now you're looking at what you benefit from versus what it has cost you. There's no question that the trauma has cost, but you can also have some benefits. And those benefits are, if you do this work, if you're optimistic, if you use coping, if you do the work of healing, you're going to be a stronger person. You may feel right now that you can't get through this time of storm, but you're going to get through it and then go, "Whoo, I made it through that. That was amazing." You're going to have closer relationships because you're going to learn who those angels are in your life. You're going to have a greater appreciation life because you've gotten through that wilderness. You're going to see new possibilities because you've strengthened these skills that you have and these strengths, and your spiritual development will be stronger because you've leaned on that to get through the storms that you've experienced. So with all of that work that you all can do, the reality is, after trauma, there is life. There is a wonderful life. And so I support Not for Sale, and I support all of you in choosing life. Thank you, Miss Ania. Anybody have questions, comments that you want me to answer?
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Y'all have any questions, anything that y'all want to say? Y'all can drop it in the chat. If not, okay. Again, thank you, Dr. K, so much for your expertise and, coming on here and, sharing your wisdom. And we appreciate you. And you keep on choosing life.
Thank you so much, Ania. Congratulations.
See you. What's up, Naeem? How you been? Where
What's
you
good,
been?
man? How you feeling?
I'm good. You in the slump? You sleepy? I'm sleepy too, but it's cool because we about to get this energy up in here today. We bringing good energy. Okay, I'm being myself, Yes, we gotta be professional, but we gotta make it fun at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Y'all with me? Y'all all quiet on me?
I'm with you. I'm just.
You with me?
See, I know what to do. I already
You know
knew
what to
what to do. I just got caught up at the moment.
Okay, Naeem. Okay.
You are like
We
you
gonna
know what
talk
to do.
about it. Right. So come on, bring the energy, Mr. Gamer. Come on. This is our tech man. Like, he be doing everything. Like, Naeem and Zion are like, I have the best teammates on here. All right, so we about to get to our next guest speaker. I'm gonna give this to Zion. She's gonna introduce her. So go on, Zion.
Okay, so our next guest speaker is Miss Shamira McKenzie. She's a consultant, advocate. I said advocate. My bad. Advocate, activist, subject matter expert on human trafficking and sought after award-winning, internationally recognized speaker and trainer, turning her paths and adversities into an opportunity to liberate and protect others. Ms. Shamir has brought about social and political change in America and around the world. Ms. Shamir has a strong passion for education and policy, and the Chief Executive Office for Sungate Foundation, an anti-trafficking organization that provides educational opportunities for survivors of human trafficking. Additionally, she serves as the training manager for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Ms. Shamir is also the co-chair for the Victim Services Committee of Human Trafficking, of the Maryland State Human Trafficking Task Force. As a former program director, she's authored for adult survivors of human trafficking.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing this fine Saturday morning?
I'm doing great. What about you? I'm
Throw,
feeling
throw some
fine.
emojis in the chat. Let me see how y'all doing. Just by emojis. Just show me how y'all doing using emojis. Using emojis, how y'all doing?
Come
I
on,
am
y'all. Y'all being come on, drop those emojis, bruh. I be using emojis all the time. I can't even find my emojis, but if I had to choose an emoji, I would pick like the crying, laughing emoji with the side things. I don't know why. I'm in a now a
I
goofy
like that
spirit.
one
But
too, Ania.
I
I like that one too. I'm seeing the emojis coming in. People are feeling good. People are doing good. It's a great morning. And it's a great morning to be here. And I know this all too well. Because had you asked me about 15 years ago if I would be on a session with you guys this morning, I would have said, oh, hell no. Right? Had y'all asked me 15 years ago, hey, can you come and talk with us? Can you come and share your story? I would have said, no, this is my secret, and I'm not going to tell anybody what happened to me. Right? Because oftentimes when we come out of trauma, we want to keep it a secret. We are still dealing with the shame and guilt, right? Self blame of what happened, right? Taking responsibility for that trauma, saying, oh, this is my fault, right? When in actuality, it's someone else's fault. So I'm here to talk to you this morning of my life after trauma, what my trauma was, and how there is hope, right? So a few years ago, and I already gave y'all some numbers, over 15 years ago, right? I was a college student on a full track scholarship at a Division One university, and you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to be the next Marion Jones, right? I mean, at that time, I am Jamaican, and you know Jamaicans own track and field, but at that time it was Marion Jones, right? So Shelley and Fraser Price wasn't around back then for all the people who know track, right? So I thought I was going to be the next Marion Jones. Here I was at a Division One university, right? On a full track scholarship because I produced so well in high school. I got a full track scholarship, tuition. I see some Jamaicans here. Shout out, Mar. I see the flag. I see the flag, right? So, I was thinking I'm going to be the next Marion Jones at a Division One university, full tuition, full room and board, and they even gave us $500 every semester. I call that pocket money, but it was really supposed to buy clothes for when we travel as athletes, right? Track, you already know Zion is the GOAT at that. All right, Zion, you run track.
Yes, I
Zion,
do.
shout out to you. All right. Zion, what's your event?
100 hurdles, 300 hurdles, and 4x2 and 4x4.
Okay, Zion, I think we need to set up a little race. I mean, Anaya, I don't know. I think we should do like a not for sale track event.
think
Like,
we should do that
you
because
know,
all of us are track runners, and I haven't ran in 2 years due to COVID. But yeah, because me and Zion actually met at a track meet at the indoor at the Armory, and it was real dope. She beat me. She came in first place, and I came in second. But it's all cool, it's cool. We ain't gonna talk about that because me and her are gonna do that again.
yes, we should
I
set
got
that up.
you.
Because I made the New York State team for the 4x1, the 4x2, the 4x4, the 3,000 steeplechase. I am still ranked number 8 in New York City from how many years ago in the 3,000 steeplechase? Yeah. So
We're gonna
Zion,
set something up. We're gonna do something with
we
that.
gotta do something. I just want to put
Yes.
Zion's test skills to
And
the
then
test. You know what I mean? I'm kind of old now, Zion. So do I get a head start? Do I get a head start? No?
Okay, here's the okay. I think
Head
I think
start.
so.
I get a head start.
Yeah, and it's good because I'm practicing almost every day, so I'm ready. Just let me know when it's gonna happen.
Y'all be making me like I'm slacking, like I haven't, bro. Now I gotta get back into the gym and start practicing. This is terrible. I like got old lady bones at this point. But
Okay, guys. So here I was on this track scholarship, thinking I'm going to be the next Marion Jones. And then I injured my hamstring, right? Injured. And everybody know when you injured a hamstring, you got to stay off of it. Everybody knows that, but my Division 1 head coach, right? So he still had me still competing, right? And at that time it was cross country season. And I remember running my last cross country race, like holding my leg and limping, right? And my coach said to me, "You ran horribly, and I don't know if I'm going to renew your scholarship next semester." So, the youth in me at that time was like, "Keep your scholarship. I'm going to send myself to school, right? I'm going to do what every other college student does. I'm going to take out loans, right? And I'm going to go back to school." So I got me a little part time job, right? And while I was at work one day, I went to mail a package at UPS. And while I was crossing the street, I saw this car coming towards me, right? And the car looked familiar. So I'm looking to see if it's my friend. When the car got to my foot, I realized it wasn't my friend. This guy came out the car, and this is in New York City. And I'm not sure if any of y'all are from New York or have ever been to New York, but guys in New York are very different, right? So this guy came out the car. He said, "Good afternoon, young lady." And I'm like, he must not be from New York. Because the guys in New York, they'd be like, "Psst, yo, ma, what up?" Right? I don't respond to that. Right? So he said, "Good afternoon, young lady." We started talking. We exchanged numbers. Right? And we had some great conversations when we were talking. We talked about politics, the single parents in the community, the high number of African Americans incarcerated. I had no idea that this was a bad guy, right? So after talking to him for, a number of weeks, he's asking me, "Why am I working so hard? Why am I working so hard?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to save up money to go back to school," right? So he's like, "I have a way you can make money." Now, in the African American community, when someone says that to you, what do you think? Drugs, right? Like hustling, right? And I was like, "I am Jamaican, and my mama always told me I brought you in this world and I can take you out. So try me." Right? So I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, that's not what I'm talking about. You ever thought about dancing?" Right? And when he said dancing, he was talking about strip dancing, right? Stripping, right? And the first thought that came to my mind was, my mama gonna kill me, right? He said, "Listen, you're trying to make $3,000. You're $3,000 short to go back to school. You can do this in no time," right? And he's like, "The guys in the strip club, they are very bad, but don't worry, I will be there to protect you." And all this time, I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is such a great guy." He's like, "You have this off campus apartment. I have a basement apartment that you can stay in for free. So you don't have to pay rent so that you can really save." I'm like, he is so nice. He got his friend to help me move into his basement apartment, right? Do y'all see any red flags yet?
The basement part.
Right? Yeah, I could stay in your basement free of cost so you can save. Right? All right. But I took him up on his offer, right? Then he said, "I'm going to take you to this club." It was a club in New Jersey. In the first 2 hours, I made $300 in this strip club, right? So I started to do the math. $300 in 2 hours. How much money did I said I needed for school? $3,000. So I started to do the math. I'm like, well, in 10 hours, I could get this money and I could go back to school. Then he took me out of that club and he brought me to this house in Brooklyn. And in this was a regular house in Brooklyn, and there were all guys in the house. He told me it was $10 for a wall dance and $20 for a lap dance. So I'm going around. I'm still not understanding what is happening to me. I'm still not understanding the situation that I'm in, right? I'm walking around this house and I'm asking these guys, "Do you want to dance? Do you want to dance? Do you want to dance?" Nobody wanted to dance with me until one guy was bold enough to ask me how much it was. A wall dance is when the guys stand on the wall and you grind on them. Just the guy standing up. and a lap dance is the dude sitting down, right? So I'm walking around asking, no one wants to dance with me. This one guy was bold enough to ask me how much it was for oral sex. This, I'm still not understanding that it is that kind of party. So I started to cuss this guy out, right? Remember my little friend, Prince Charming, that said he would be there to protect me? He overheard the conversation and pulled me to the side. So I'm thinking, yes, he's coming to my rescue. He's going to defend me after this guy was asking me about this slackness, right? When he pulled me over, he said, "You're going to do what he said do." And I said, "Did you hear what he asked me?" And he said, "Yes." And he told me the amount to charge. So I started cussing him out. And I told him, "Yo, I'm just going to leave. I'll figure out another way to get this money I need to go back to school." Right? And I remember taking one step forward and he put his hand around my throat and brought me back to my position. And my whole life flashed before me because these were all men in this house. I remember the guys at the front door. They were big bodybuilder looking guys. And he said, "Do you really think that you could leave?" Right? And I mean, he was squeezing my neck and everything. And, my whole life flashed before me. So I became compliant, right? I basically froze, like, what's going to happen to me? And I remember being there trying to figure out, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Right? And I went back to this guy and I said, "You want to do some lap dances? My life is on the line." I don't remember exactly what I said to him, but I talked him out of some lap dances. But I had a plan. When I got back to the house, the other guys weren't going to be there, and I can fight. I'm just going to fight him if he put his hand around my neck, right? Not quite so. So when we got back to the house, I went to him and I said, "You're a really good guy. Thank you so much for trying to help me. This is not my cup of tea," right? I'm just going to go downstairs. I'm going to pack my bags and I'm going to leave, right? And again, he got up and he said, "Do you really think you can leave me?" And I said, "Don't believe me, just watch." No, guys, I didn't say that. That song wasn't even out back then. But I have to tell the story in a way so that my brain understands that I'm in the present and not in the past, right? So he got up and of course, what do you think he did? He went after my neck again, right? And what do y'all think I did this time? Put it in the chat.
Did you fight back this time or?
Okay, Zion thought I fought back this time. What do other people think I did?
I was ready to say fight back, but I think you're the type of person, I don't know. Like, I was thinking the same thing as Zion, because it's like, you're the type of person that never back down, like, for anything. Like, if someone try to bring you down, you like, nope, nothing ain't gonna stop me. Like, I'm gonna have to do what I have to do. Like, that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Someone said, "Kicked him in the groin. You stay with him. You fought back. Take leave and get help. First red flag." Well, guys, I told y'all I'm a fighter. I punched him in the face, right? You came after my neck. I punched him in the face. And that's when I learned rule number 1: never hit a pimp. He had rings on his fingers. He had on steel toe construction boots, and he started to beat me up. He choked me to the point where he popped a blood vessel in my right eye. To this day, I still have a dark spot in my right eye, right? He choked me to the point of unconsciousness where I lost control of my bodily fluids, right? When I regained consciousness, he was so apologetic. He came and he knelt down and he was like, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I lost control and I'll never do this to you again. Please forgive me." And I believed him. And this cycle of physical and psychological abuse continued for 18 months. 18 months to what I would describe as torture in every sense of the word torture. right? When you talk about physical abuse, I'm not just talking about getting punched and kicked. I'm talking about being slammed to the floor. And I don't want to traumatize y'all to get tell y'all all those experiences, but just understand that when you think of torture, those things happen to trafficking victims, right? And escape for me wasn't an option, right? I tried several ways to escape before and they didn't, nothing happened. First, I thought maybe I should poison his food, but I'm like, well, if he doesn't die, he's going to know I poisoned him and there's going to be a consequence for that. I tried running away several times, right? But he always told me he would go after my family. He told me he knows my grandmother goes to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. It would be easy for him to kill her at 3 o'clock in the morning and nobody would know. So threatening to kill my family, threatening to hurt people I know. That time that I had run away, he told me if I don't come back, he's going after my grandmother. I came back, right? He got these bodybuilder men to come and intimidate me one time. That didn't work. When I got to Florida, right, because traffickers go where the money is. When I got to Florida, I tried running away with this Jamaican gang, right? That didn't work. As a result, from that, trying to run away with this Jamaican gang, I was raped at gunpoint by that gang member. So I tried all these things and it was not working. So I thought maybe if I stopped making him money, because the money that you would make in these strip clubs, it wasn't going to me. I would have to turn over every dollar to him, right? Every single dollar went to him. So I thought maybe if I stopped making money, he wouldn't want me anymore. And I was working at a huge strip club in Miami where all your celebrities go, right? And so my quota, and the quota is the amount of money you must make at your location. My quota at that time was $3,000, right? And I went home from making $3,000 to $1,000 to $500 to bringing home $0, right? And he would ask, well, what happened? Why are you not? And I'm like, nobody likes me anymore. Of course, he knows that that's a lie because of the type of strip club that is and the clientele that comes to that strip club. So he took me out the strip club and he put me on the streets of South Beach. And when you're being exploited in this world of trafficking, you don't get money to say, hey, here's some money to buy something to eat. Food is a reward. If you don't make your quota, you don't eat, right? So we used to make friends with people, strangers, to get food. And one day he caught us doing that and he called another girl and I back to the car and she got in the front seat and he immediately started to beat her up. And he turned around and he said, what am I going to do with you? And I said, just let me leave. He said, you want to leave? Okay. And he brought me back to the house. And I was downstairs, like twiddling my fingers, like, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? And when he went upstairs, I heard the sound of him loading his gun. Now, I've had a previous encounter with his gun where I told him I didn't want to drive, right? And he told me before, well, choose death or driving. And at that point, I had given up all hopes in life. And I said, go ahead and kill me, right? And I remember him putting the gun in my mouth and pulling the trigger. But the gun was unloaded, luckily, right? But this time, when I heard the sound of the gun, something inside me did not want to die. Something inside me say, run, right? So I ran out the back door. And while I was running out in this was a gated community in Florida. While I was running out, this neighbor was there in his garage and he's like, what are you doing running around here like that? Because he's seeing me running, ducking and hiding. And I said, let me ask y'all, do y'all think I said to him, I'm running away from my trafficker who's trying to beat me up? No, because traffickers, they program you to tell people lies, basically. So I told this guy, I'm running from my ex-boyfriend who's trying to beat me up. My boyfriend, sorry, who's trying to beat me up. So he said, well, he's going to find you. Come into my garage. Now, I trusted this guy because he had a little 2-year-old with him. And that's how I escaped trafficking. That guy helped me to call my mom, to put me in a hotel, and then I flew back to New York. Now, I want to tell y'all, even after I escaped, I would still call him on the phone every day. And you may be like, why would you call him? You escape. Because he always told me if I left, he's going to kill me or my family. So I was calling him to see his mindset. Is he really coming after me? Is he really coming after my family? And after a while, he said, get off my phone because you're on the phone with the police. Right? So someone said, so traffickers study psychologies in an indirect way because they know how to enslave. Yes. Right? The very short answer to your question, Nicole, yes, it's both psychological coercion and physical. So the physical is mixed with the psychological, right? They use the physical piece, and some traffickers, they don't use physical. They don't hit their victims. They don't beat their victims. It's all psychological. I have a survivor friend. Her trafficker never hit her. Right? It was all a mind game, getting into your head. And traffickers, there's a trafficker who wrote this book, and that's what he said: get into their head. Right? So when I escaped all of this, I was still suffering with guilt and shame, blaming myself. It's my fault. You went with this guy. You went in his basement apartment. Right? I was still dealing with all that shame and guilt. And like I told y'all in the beginning, I said this was my little secret and I wasn't going to tell anybody what happened to me. And you guys are hearing the very condensed version of my story today, right? For the sake of time, right? You guys are hearing the very short version, right? So, but after coming out of this, I thought, listen, what am I going to do, right? Talking about human trafficking. First of all, while I was being trafficked, right, I didn't know there was a thing that's called human trafficking. I thought this was just prostitution and stripping, right? So when I came out of it, and even in court, and the judge was talking about human trafficking, I was asking my lawyer, what is she talking about? Right? So here I was thinking, my life is finished. I'm never going to do anything. People are going to judge me if they find out about my story. And you guys heard my bio, right? Here I am now, the CEO of a foundation, right? I am the first appointed anti-trafficking ambassador to Jamaica, right? I co-chair the Victim Services Committee for the Maryland State Human Trafficking Task Force, and I travel the world basically training various professionals, law enforcement, right? I have trained as high up as to the Bureau of Diplomatic Security, which is the security arm that travels with the Secretary of State, right? FBI, Homeland Security, State Police. So I've done all these things. And I'm not saying that, hey, I've done all these things for you to say, hey, look at me. I'm trying to show y'all how I had this traumatic experience, but I did not let that stop me. There was a point in my life where I wanted to give up. I attempted suicide several times and I wanted to give up. But remember I told y'all I was a fighter. And when you're a fighter, it's not just physical. There is something inside of you, even when you're down for a while, right? You want to get back up. You want to keep on going. We all face adversity, right? Everyone on this session today have faced adversity. I used to say, if you haven't faced adversity, you haven't lived long enough. But we all been through this pandemic, and that pandemic is adversity, right? We've all been impacted in some way, shape, or form. But I'm here to tell you today, I'm not my story. I'm not going to let my experience stop me from moving forward, because I have seen how I have shared my story to help other survivors, to help affect policies, right? To help change laws, to help train even judges, to help judges understand how they shouldn't be prosecuting survivors, to help prosecutors understand, to help law enforcement understand. So there is a life after trauma. This did not happen overnight. I can tell you that it took a lot of support. I have a very large support system, right? It took a lot of support. It took me listening to my support system as well, right? Because sometimes when we're in our funk and people are telling us things, we're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I want to do my own thing. right? But it really took me listening to my support system, listening to their guidance, right? And sometimes when we're young, and especially me, I thought I had all the answers and I knew it all, right? So it really took a lot of time. And I can tell y'all, I'm here with y'all today, but I am still going through this process. I'm still going through my healing process. Y'all heard how I shared my story and I had to put a little jokes here and there. The jokes weren't for you, the jokes were for me, right? The jokes were for me tricking my brain to let my brain know I'm not in the past, I'm in the present. So there is life after trauma. You can rise up and you can be anything you want to be, even having such a traumatic experience. But that starts with you. You have to make that decision. I am going to get past this. I am going to move forward, because all these people could be in your ear and telling you, you can do this, Zion, right? You can do this, Naeem, right? All these people could be telling you you can do it. But if you don't believe in yourself that you can rise up and rise beyond your situation and move forward with life, that's just empty talk. It starts with self. It starts with you believing. It starts with you taking the first step, right? No, you're not just, I did not just jump and become the CEO, right? I did not just jump and become the anti-trafficking ambassador. That took years. That took time. That took me working on myself, working on my own healing before I start doing this work, and continuously working on my healing process, right? So I had to believe in myself. Others can believe in me, but I have to believe in myself. So my message to you today is, no matter what you have gone through in life, you can move forward. When adversity faces you, there are many things that you could do with it. You can push it out the way. You could jump over it. You could go underneath it. You could go around it. But don't stay in your sorrows. I'm going to encourage you to rise up, rise above it. It's going to be a hard journey. This was not an easy journey for me, but you got to take that first step. And to me, that first step is believing in yourself, getting a strong support system. Understand that you're going to need people in your corner to help you. No man is an island. I did not achieve these things on my own. I had mentors. I had people, family members encouraging me, supporting me. And you have to be willing to accept that help. That's the other thing, because sometimes you're like, no, I'm good. I could do this on my own. No, we need support. I remember going to school and there was a song that we used to sing that says, no man is an island, no man stands alone. You're not an island. We need the support of everyone. So, yes, there is life after trauma. You can rise up and you can go on. Go after your dreams. Go confidently after those dreams and goals that you always had in you, right? Don't let anything or anyone stop you from going after those dreams. You know, I remember growing up, people used to say the sky is the limit. But there are planets that we're still learning about today. So don't stop at the sky. Go all the way out there, right? Go after those dreams. Don't let trauma stop you. And get the help that you need. There's Dr. K was on here. There is help, right? Get the professional help that you need to continue your life. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this morning. Ania, it was definitely a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. And I look forward to continuing to support Not for Sale Youth.
Thank you so much, Miss Shamir. Zion or Naeem, I know y'all wanted to say something, and we just really want to appreciate you, Miss Shamir, for sharing your story and helping so many other young people and just people in general, and motivating them for them to keep on choosing life, that there is life after trauma, that it doesn't have to stop there. So we really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, I also wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your story, because it just like happens in a matter of a second, and you definitely just give me like, you just give me more like a reason why I want to do what I want to do when I get older, and why I want to like become a lawyer when it comes to this type of stuff, because there's so many people out here that can like that's suffering from right now. But we have to be thankful that it's not us, and we are thankful that you were able to escape and things like that. But I definitely want to thank you for sharing your story, because I know it can be hard sharing your story even if it was over 15 years ago. So I just want to really thank you and appreciate you, and definitely your energy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone in the chat. I see you guys are posting. Thank you so much for your kind words. They are truly, truly appreciated.
I wanted to say something. Sorry to interrupt. I would actually like thank you for actually coming and speaking out, because it's not always, people like you have the courage to actually speak on these type of things as well. When we talk about these specific topics, people often think about, oh, like, oh, this is just scripted. It's not scripted. This really happened often, a lot. And I feel like people like you should always feel comfortable and feel welcome to talking about it, because you don't know how it could really help others and how it could really change other people's perspective. And we're not just saying it and happen, you know, to people like you, but men as well, because I'm a black male as myself, but my thing is like people like me, it happened to them as well. So we really want to spread awareness and let everyone know, hey, you're not alone. We in this with you as well. Like, and I like how you always talking about you're a fighter and like you always destined to keep going. That's my mindset as always. It don't matter how down bad I get, I would keep going. Even say example, I can have $0 to my name. I can make that happen in a week. I can make things happen in a week. I like your mindset. Like I feel like we got the same mindset. It's like you just think off the optimistic. Like, nah, I don't care what happened. All I just need is me at this moment. I love
Mhm.
it. I definitely love it.
Thank you, Zion. And to everyone in closing, I just want to say never forget you are destined for greatness.
Thank you so much, Miss Shamil. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you stay on to, see everything else that is coming. But again, we appreciate you. And again, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right, y'all ready for the next thing? All right, so just a little heads up, Not for Sale created a documentary and it's still in progress. This is just the only beginning. People who see it here, y'all see it first. It ain't done. Keep that in mind. It ain't done, but y'all gonna be the first to see it. It's gonna be talking about mental health and of course how we always gonna choose life. Y'all just heard amazing motivational story from Shamir McKenzie, and then after that we're gonna talk about this documentary, what y'all thought, what y'all heard, and again we about to jump right in. Miss Johnny's about to share it for y'all, and we about to get started.
Dr. Shawnette Williams, principal of Reginald F. Lewis High School. So for me, one of the most interesting things that have happened since we came back to school from the pandemic is to just see the disparity in which our students are facing trauma. And for us here at Reginald, every day we think about what is it that we can do to ensure that our students are getting the care that they need. But how do we find this care, and what especially is the route to identifying what our students need?
All right, y'all can
As a
turn
principal,
it down more.
one of the major things that I focus on and talk about is when is it that we can get the help that our students need. Coming back into the building after 2 years at home, our students have gone through so much. They have been by themselves, they're managing themselves, they have seen in their surroundings just a lot of death, not only from COVID, but also from violence around them. And they come back to school and we expect that the students are just going to pick up from where they left off. And those things are not real. For me, the way to make sure that we are reaching them is to find out what are the individual causes of how our students are dealing with mental health, and how is it that we're going to help them to look at the aspects of their lives that they need these help, and to find resources to help them. And so here at my school, we are including as many social activities as possible, making sure that we are having different groups of students just work in avenues that they like to do, something that they can see, okay, so I'm dealing with this trauma of maybe last night I had a friend who passed either from a gunshot, or now I have my 3 grandmothers and my grandfather in this year only have died. I was just speaking with one of my students 2 days ago. She had, something that she shouldn't have in the building, just an equipment. And when I spoke with her, she says to me, Dr. Williams, I'm just going through a lot right now. And just broke down crying. And for me, those are the moments that just kind of pull at your heart. And then you talk to her and she was like, my grandparents passed this year. Last year, this time, it's like I'm celebrating, but it's the anniversary of something traumatic in my life. And I don't know how to deal with it. And I felt like just maybe vaping or smoking, the issue goes away. And how do I reach that young lady or that young man who has those same concerns? And so for us, the greatest thing is to make sure that we are including within the curriculum just that class that deals with not just guidance counseling, but that class that deals with mental health and trauma, and how our students cope with this with these traumatic experiences that they have every day. We expect our students to come to school and sit for 70 minutes, 90 minutes in a classroom and focus on instruction. But the thing that's blocking their instructional capacity is something that they're thinking about all night, all morning. They get up, come to school with the same thing on their heads, and we're not meeting those needs. And so, it's just, for me as a principal and my staff, is what are the systems that we can put in place, and who can we reach out to make sure that our students are experiencing a balanced and a wholesome education, that we are meeting their economic needs, we're meeting their social needs, their mental health needs, and also that balance between how do I deal with a death, how do I deal with a traumatic experience, and also balance that with getting into college, and how we build those systems together for our students. And so this year I have reached out to capacity builders and reached out to my staff and trying to say, let's start new programs for our students. Let's have groups of communication where our students, sometimes we call it a restorative group, but not restorative in terms of building them to find out how they are going to bridge behavioral gaps, but restorative in terms of how am I going to help you to cope with those trauma that you face every day, every time you leave the building, and even coming back into the building. And I'm looking forward to anyone who is willing to help my school and my students to bridge those gaps, and just to make sure that our students are not just experiencing someone who cares about them, but a whole community that cares about them, and a whole nation that cares about them. And I think that is just one of those things that's a kind of pull at your heart every day when you sit in front of the kids and say to yourself, how can I help Daquan? And how can I help Janice? And how can I help Janice to go home and help her parents and help her sisters to deal with just what's going on with our students with trauma?
Hi, my name is Hannah Sims. I am a visual art teacher at Reginald F. Lewis High School. So when I think about how the art room can be improved to address trauma that our students and community faces, I think about it on two levels. Like, on the one hand, making art and expression is a release and a form of trauma therapy in itself. And then also that art can be used to specifically address trauma that a student might experience or that they experience like in our community. So on the one hand, art itself is therapeutic, right? So one of the things that I do that might not be like considered at first is that I make sure that students can feel really successful in the artwork that they make, right? I think it's so important that they make art that they love and that they have the skills that they need to like bring their vision forward, right? That in a way might be a little different than how some art teachers do it. So we focus like so heavily on skills so that what their vision, you know, they get their vision. So, you know, we like, you know, focus a ton on, you know, how to paint. We're using like a really difficult paint right now. I can bring it over closer. Like a super difficult paint that just forces them to learn skills. You know, we're still in the start of the school year. So once they can master this paint, this ink, then we actually go into an easier paint, but they have all the skills they need to create work that they're proud of, right? The act of putting the paint down is kind of therapeutic. My students yesterday said, you know, look at everybody. They're like so focused. You know, it was kind of zen in here. This is an example of artwork where the student expresses their self. So this student speaks Spanish and her artwork is bilingual. So just allowing students the opportunity to express whatever part of them that they want to express in the art making process. So that's the piece of art being, art making being therapeutic in its own right. But then, of course, you can address trauma in art, like music, visual art, dance, of course, theater. And sometimes that just comes out really naturally. I have a student doing work on the way that he experiences racism, for instance. His work talks, in the head of his work, he talks about the messages that he feels like he receives from media, from culture, negative messages about what he can achieve as a young Black man. And then coming out of his mouth says something to the effect of, I can do anything, right? So he's got negative messages in his head, you know. Oh, I have a student doing a piece in her hair, in the hair of her piece. She wanted to reference sort of negative views of dreadlocks. And she, yeah, right? I'll find it actually. And so she says, it says dirty and dreadful, right, in the hair, but then coming out of her mouth is the word love, right? So like even in an artwork that doesn't actually ask students to talk about trauma, kids' experiences come out in their work, and sometimes their trauma comes out, right? And then we have also done things here that specifically address trauma. So like this quilt from a couple of years ago did ask students to address the question of how they are affected by violence in the community. And, you know, part of trauma-informed care, as you know, is this idea that you have to create this safe environment for people to express themselves. So the first thing about this project was, no one had to participate. And if you did choose to participate, you definitely did not have to make art that was super personal. So we gave kids a lot of choice. You can address, trauma or violence on a global level. One of the students was doing a religious targeted shooting. So she did in a mosque and made hash marks of the number of people who had been shot in this global level. Students did pieces on what it was like to be an immigrant in the U.S. And this piece right here, this student chose to be really personal, and he talked about an incident that had happened in his family. So I guess to summarize, I think that the arts, and that can include also fiction and writing in English class, right? Or I'm sure you can do it in every subject, but sort of learning and education is therapeutic in its own self, right? It doesn't have to specifically address trauma in order to address trauma. But then you can use those mediums to talk about that as an outlet as well.
And it was like, Anita, we get it. I was like, well, I got a story to tell and I'm gonna write it. Especially when I was in middle school, Miss Level, right? And again, a paragraph and I wrote 3 pages. Because sometimes the questions that is asked, I never thought about, and then I'll feel connected to the question and I want to give everything just because I don't journal consistently. But when I do, it's heartfelt. So when I write, my journals or whatever the objective is or whatever the assignment is, I do it. I don't know. I feel sometimes I connect too much to the lesson, especially the books that we used to, learn. Sometimes I still had the books, from my high school. That's only been a year. But from my other schools, just because I look back at it and I see how much I have grown. But when I did write, I was okay, I didn't know I was experiencing this much until I actually sat down and read it and they read it. And sometimes I feel once teachers, see what their students present, it gives them a different perspective. Okay, maybe that's the reason how they're acting, because they've been through this, they've been through that. And then they have a more understanding and they have a way for them to connect with them on a deeper level. Just not as a, student, but remember, they're human beings and they have feelings. Put the student to the side, put authority to the side, I feel you. I'm connecting with you, I understand you. And even when I don't, I want to learn how to understand you. Because at the end of the day, when they leave here, they still a human being. They walk in feeling like I'm just a student. We got, teachers or hall monitors, telling us what to do and whatnot, but at the same time, you have to. This is so self-like. You have to have control of your classroom, but also having control of yourself. But letting them be free and exploring who they are. That's how I learned myself in high school. I learned what I didn't like. I learned what I did like. I learned what I should have never done, but that helped me to not make those same decisions again. But especially when I was in music, I pushed myself so much. And once COVID happened, I wasn't able to perform. It was just I worked so hard, but it's crazy how you don't even have to say nothing. Sometimes the classes is impact.
My name is Jahi Robinson. I teach at Reginald F. Lewis High School, and I teach instrumental music, piano, and general music. I think the first thing that I would have to talk about is my experiences. I grew up in, I started out living in the city, but then I had an experience where my mom, threw me out, okay? And so that was a real hard thing for me. So once that happened, I was introduced, when I moved with my grandmother, I was introduced into music. I was given my first trumpet. And just from that experience, just having that trumpet, having the discipline that comes behind it, the creativity that comes with it, everything that came from being in band, jazz band, all of that, it just changed my perspective. It was the thing that made me, when I was sick, it was the thing that made me feel better. When I was having problems, the band room and everything in it was just the outlet. It was social, it was emotional, it did everything. And so like, that's one of the things that helps me to be the teacher that I am, okay? Because I want to give those same experiences to the students that I teach. When I do see, like, it's like a joy when you see a student that is interested in music. Now, generally, like at this level, they might not go on to be professional musicians, but just instilling that same joy, that social connection with everybody, knowing that you're a part of a team, and in everything that you do, even if you play the smallest part, you're still big in the band. If you play the largest part, you're still helpful to everybody. So it's like with music, what I would like to see over my time at this school or wherever I go after this, I would just like to see it help our students, because our students need that help. They need that outlet. They need a chance to express themselves, but in a positive way. Okay, so if I can give them the gift that somebody gave me, and I'll put his name out there, Mr. James Goff. If somebody can give me the same experience that Mr. James Goff gave me, if I can do that, then I will be happy for the rest of my life. But that's all I really want, is to just give them the same experiences that I was afforded. Being a parent kind of helps with you being a teacher, because if you don't really love kids, then you can't really be a good teacher. And one of the things that I try to think of when I see students, whether they're interested in music or not, what I try to think of is, how would I treat my daughter? How exactly would, if I was in the classroom with my daughter, how would I treat her and how would I teach her? So I think when it comes to music, I just love music, and I just want everything to, I want people to experience what I experience and feel what I feel, and I want them to have that creative outlet. And just as I want my daughter to feel the same way, and when she's taking piano lessons and she's expressing how she's feeling through her music, even though she's 7, it brings a joy to me.
As a parent, I find joy seeing my daughter play. I felt that she was kind of following in her dad's footsteps a little bit there. Too much to my surprise and delight, she became a little bit more developed and a little bit more advanced than I was.
Right.
So I was happy about that, because I always told her that, and we always told her, and my wife and I told her that, always try to do better than the previous generation before you, and try to go even further. And what she was able to do was play more instruments than I was when she was my age. So she did the violin, or she actually did it when she was younger. So she did violin, then she did clarinet, then piano, not necessarily in that order, and then trumpet for a little while.
Right.
So just like I find joy in playing music, that's the kind of experience I want people to have as well. Even in these walls, when it was called Northern High School, I remember Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone, he was harsh, but he was effective, and he was harsh because he wanted you to bring out the best in you. And the only times he was really harsh was when he knew that we knew what we had to do, but we didn't apply ourselves.
Right.
And that's the lesson that I got from him. Not everybody is going to take the harsh approach. Sometimes I did with my daughter, but I had to kind of well, what if it was me? And then I had to think back when I was in the 7th grade. I was in a class full of prodigies. Right. Everybody played at no less than 2 instruments. And if they didn't play 2 instruments, they were so gifted.
Right.
So it was more or less like, okay, I am not going to do this anymore. I know what am I doing?
Right.
But I have to say, some of what they did kind of rubbed off on me, and I was able to get better as time went along. So I just hope that if anybody's out there inspired to play music, then they should go forward and do it, even if they don't see it as a career, but use it as an outlet to get some kind of some kind of therapy. Because for me, it's now I'm discovering after life has gone on that it's becoming therapy for me. So that helps out a lot. So that's what I want people to get out of music.
I think you made a great point. You said you want you want your children or this generation to be better than the previous generation. And that's what I see from my own daughter. Like, I just want her to be better. When I see her, like, even though she's 7, like, when I see her taking piano lessons and I see her, like, reading the music, and she is, like, knowing the notes and, like, knowing the treble and the bass clef, she knows how to read rhythms, like, that brings joy to me. But I also see how it helps her. Sometimes she has a little anger, right? Sometimes she has a little anger.
You're preaching to the choir.
But I see how it kind of calms that down, and it also teaches you, like, it teaches you about life. You know what I mean? Because, like, when you are messing up or when you're having trouble, you just go back and fix the mistake and keep going. You don't just fall down and say, I quit the instrument, I'm done. No, you gotta keep going and you do better. So, like, I really see how, like, you made a good point about, like, being better, but I see that.
One thing that kind of drives me and something that sticks with me for a long time, and it's what I share with my students and with anybody that I meet who struggles or who have just that initial life that I want to go further. And I would always say to them, dare to dream big. Be proud to wake up and act.
Well, if I thought about a jewel for young people, I would say one thing you could do is look for those people who are there to help you, your people, right? Because they're out there, right? And, while you might have tons of helpful people all around you, and then probably a lot of people who are not particularly helpful, but find your person or your people and like, let them help you. Like, there really are helpers out there.
In life, I think that we go through challenges, and life is hard. Life can, like, knock you down. Life can, like, hurt you bad, and we have our ups and our downs. And the biggest thing that I would say to anybody is these 2 words: adapt, and you have to overcome. Like, you have to see what the situation is, see what it is, and you have to adapt to it, because everything's not gonna just be easy. Everything's not gonna be a cakewalk, as they say, but you're gonna have to adapt to that situation, and then you're gonna have to find a solution to overcome. Now, that solution may not be right in your face. It may be somebody helping you. It may be somebody mentoring you. It may be just a friend, like, giving you a shoulder to cry on to help you get over whatever it is. So, like, that's like my biggest thing. Like, whatever you have to do, whether it be in music, if you're having problems in music, you have to adapt to it and you have to overcome.
Hello, my name is David McNair. I'm here representing the event for Not For Sale, and I'm going to be doing an instrumental set for you. The first song we're going to do is a song from Nia Jones, and it's called Hopscotch. The next selection is called Sweet Love. Selection I'm going to do is called Friends and Lovers from Ronnie Lars. This next selection is called Giving You the Best That I Can. Next song I'm going to do is called Let's Stay Together. The next selection is called Reason. I want to talk a little bit about how music impacted my life. When I was in the fifth grade, I was awful at sports, and I used to get bullied a lot because I wasn't an athlete. So I got into music when I was in the fifth grade. Later on, I went to middle school. I wanted to play saxophone and couldn't play it in elementary. So when I went to middle school, I was able to play saxophone. And one of the things that I found with music is it's been peaceful. It's a nice outlet, and it's always been something that I love to do. So I continued on from high school on until now, and it is one of the things that has kept me from getting into a lot of trouble on the streets. A lot of my so-called associates used to get in trouble. Some got locked up, but I stayed with music, and it's been a joy since then. So if I want to leave a nugget or a jewel for someone to have, I would say, if you have a passion for something and it's going to be a positive passion, then by all means go for it. Continue to do so. Continue to surround yourself with people who are going to support you. Not everybody supported me in music, but sometimes you have to go with your own passion. You have to pull forward and do your own thing. So just continue to believe in your passion and believe in yourself, and you'll persevere. This next selection is called Crooked Smile.
Okay, so the reason why I stopped right there because earlier this year we held a summer camp called Tony's Art Program, which was dedicated to my mom, someone who might reference her as Antoinette or Poochie or Tony or Annie or ASM. For people who know her, she's in love with the arts, and unfortunately she passed in August 30th, but we still trying to keep the legacy alive, the music alive. And so the reason why you didn't hear that last song, because y'all kids, if y'all register for this Camp Tony's Art Program, they're going to be playing it. This is all that we're going to do. This is a trauma-informed care approach where we focus on youth strengths instead of their trauma. And by doing that, we're going to do it through music, dance, and art. All that and jazz, okay? So, and watching that documentary, about to have a panel discussion, and we're going to have Black Mental Health Alliance. We're also going to have excuse me, I'm so excited. Sometimes I can't even get my words out right, you know what I'm saying? But we're going to have Miss Nia from Black Mental Health Alliance, Mentally Wealthy, Fearlessly Loving Yourself Incorporated. And we're also going to have the Heal First movement. And as they're joining on, I hope y'all enjoy this panel. Hey, Miss Nia, it's been a long time no see. I miss you in our trainings that we had.
I know. I feel like it's been forever. I can't believe it's been a year already since the last time I was here with you all. So really good to see you, and always excited to hear the amazing things that you're doing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, Mr. Julius, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing all right.
That's good. Miss Kim, you on here? We waiting. Oh, there you are. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? First of all, happy first anniversary. That's so exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Here.
Thank you. So, we about to get right into it. If y'all mind, one by one, introducing yourselves, the organization that y'all representing, and something about yourself.
I can go. My name's Kimmy Sauer, and I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called Fearlessly Loving Yourself, or Be More Fly for short. We are a mentoring program over in Southwest Baltimore for girls ages 7 to 18. We provide peer-to-peer mentoring, direct mentoring, and group mentoring, as well as an exposure program. By exposure program, I mean finding different experiences to expose our youth to, because we can't expect someone to know what they like or even what they're good at if they've never been exposed to it.
I can go next. My name is Nia Jones. I am the Youth and College Division Consultant for the Black Mental Health Alliance for Education and Consultation. You got to say the whole thing. And one thing about me, I think I share this all the time, that I am from Baltimore. I love my city. I'm a graduate of Baltimore City College. I went to Morgan State University for both of my degrees. And I still live in the same zip code that I grew up in. And so I am committed to the work that we do here with the Black Mental Health Alliance, specifically in Baltimore, but now really across the country. So super excited to be here.
Okay, MSU in the building. All right, I see. My name is Julius Vaughn. I am the founder of an organization named Mentally Wealthy. And we're really just dedicated to inspiring and trying to provide as much help as we can to people who are battling with mental health issues. And we're not just talking about, diagnosed, but also undiagnosed. We really want to inspire them to help get the help they need out in the community.
Great. So we about to start asking y'all a few questions, and Zion is actually going to ask the questions, and just be yourself and just be honest with the folk and the work that y'all doing. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate everything that y'all do. So let's get into it.
Hey everyone, I'm Zion, and the first question is, what is a case or something that you have dealt with throughout your career that hurt you the most? I think we can go in the same order as the introduction, so Miss Kimmy can go first.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that in the line of work I do, aside from Fly, I work in policy that focuses, I work for Council Member Christopher Burnett. And so a lot of our policy is around human trafficking and housing and things like that. And I think throughout my career, there's been a very consistent and frustrating challenge, which is resources. I think as service providers, we want to see our clients, our communities thrive. And I think resources is the biggest barrier, and funds that should be going to supporting healing and progress and things like that aren't necessarily always there. And so I think that's what hurts me the most is, we've been doing this for a very long time, and the challenges we see today as young professionals, as professionals who have been here, have been the same across the span of time, right? And so I think what hurts us the most and what hurts me the most is when I am working with a client and I don't have the resources that I need to best support them.
Yes, that's definitely a huge issue in our city today. Miss Nia?
So when I think about really great question, I go back to early in my career as a clinician. I had a client who, a Black woman, who had lived through some really traumatic situations. And I came to a point where I was trying to use all of the kind of typical approaches in the clinical space and realized that none of them were working. Because we were continually trained to kind of have this whitewashed approach of, oh, let's go do some mindfulness activities, or let's think about those good things. And the fact of the matter for this client and other clients was that there was nothing good that was happening in her life or around her, unfortunately. And so it was my responsibility as a clinician to really do intentional work around what's going to work for people that look like me, that live in my city, that have these really horrible, really surrounded by these horrible circumstances. How do we begin to heal ourselves and pull ourselves out of this together? And so she called me to the carpet. She made me a better clinician in the work, because she was like, you're giving me all this stuff and none of this is working. And so that was the hardest work that I've ever had to do, which really made me shift my focus from really kind of doing the individual level work to really starting to create programming to work with other clinicians to help them to become better, working with young people in Healing Youth Alliance to really bring awareness to mental health, because I knew that working kind of individually was making a difference, but I wanted to really make a difference globally. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her. After I had to transition from the organization for a variety of reasons, but I still think about her situation, and her life informs the way in which I train, the way in which I talk about mental health, the way in which I help young people in our wellness check-ins, and how I create trainings, because the fact of the matter is, a lot of times the way in which we're taught as clinicians, when we're really met head on with a lot of the traumatic issues that happen in our community, that stuff doesn't work. Not initially, right? It can work a little bit later. And so I really had to work to become better and smarter and really intentional about my research and study to make sure that it worked for people that look like me.
And
Yes, I
so,
definitely. You can go, Mr.
so,
Brilliant.
oh, okay, sorry. Um, I'm gonna I want to share like a more of a personal experience. Um, so in studying psych and really along my mental health journey, one of the things that really inspired me to pursue mentally wealthy and everything was growing up in a dysfunctional family, right? Seeing my mother, um, deal with the things that she dealt with in her marriage, and it was interesting because for me, I always felt like initially I felt like I could save her, right? If anything, if nothing else, I felt like maybe I can inspire her to, take her mental health a little bit more serious. And I think the most difficult thing was, even though, I helped her get in therapy, and she there was a time where there was multiple times where she was, doing the practices and things that she learned in therapy. But ultimately, she made the decision to stay in her environment and continue to deal with, the things that she's been dealing with for years. And, she's in a state where she's in complete survival mode 9 times out of 10 in, this dysfunctional relationship. And so it's tough. It's tough. I think um, one of the hardest things sometimes, and I think, the other lady spoke on it, was getting to a point where you have to realize you can't always inspire, or you can't really save everyone. That they have to make a decision on their own, and sometimes you have to let it be, as hard as it is. So I think that's what I would have to say to that.
I have a question. Maybe it's just me and my, mindset in certain things, and just, us as being as youth, and how we want and urge to help, people who are going through things. And like we, hear stories every day from our peers and what they might be going through, whether that's, what they're doing outside, or whether that's going out in their home. And like I struggle with it personally. Like sometimes when I see someone who's in need, I like want to help so bad, but like Miss Joni and other people say so many times, you can only help someone who wants to be helped. And and sometimes it's hard for the people that want to help, because like we want them to succeed. We want to see like their fullest potential, like we know what they can do. And so I was maybe 7 years old when this happened. And homelessness is nothing new. We see homeless people every day, and it's sad. And like people necessarily don't always understand the story on why they became homeless. Some of them is, mental health issues. Some of them could have lost their jobs and wasn't able to pay everything that they needed to pay for. And so when I was younger, every time I get paid, I had my job, make the bed, chores as a kid. And you get paid. I always gave my money to a homeless person. And I think one time my parents got upset. Like, I ran out the car and I was like, wait, I just wanted to give him, my $5. Maybe he could just get a chicken box or something. Like, you're so innocent. And like, understanding, like, you can only do with so much. And then there was another incident where there was a lady who did have mental health issues, specifically with also substance abuse. And like, she just laid out, we was in a Chinese store and she just was asking for money, and then she fell out. And I was like, I want to get connected with her so bad. Like, can we take her to her home, or like, can we do something? So as mental health providers and working, with people every day, how do you try not to overdo? Like, you got to do your job, but how do you not, give too much of your resources or to someone who probably doesn't even need it? So how do you not get used? So how can you recognize, like, when someone is actually in need, if that makes sense? Like, everyone is in need, but how do you not, do too much, if that makes sense?
I think that's a really hard question to answer, right? Because we want to, when I'm assisting someone or helping them with any problem, it's not about me, but it's about what they need in that moment. And so if I make the judgment call that, yes, I, like you were saying, the $5. If I know that I can make something, like a situation in someone's life, just a little bit easier, that's a win, right? But if I know that I need that $5 for a client that I already committed that resource to, that's a judgment call on us as case managers and providers and supporters. And so, you have to make sure that when you're giving whatever the resource is, whether it's referrals or time or money or additional support, you have to make sure that you're not putting people that you've already committed those things to at a disadvantage. And so that's really about setting those boundaries with yourself, rather than assessing a situation and feeling like, well, this person is just trying to get over on me, right? And so it's making sure that you're giving everyone that you've made those commitments to what you've promised, because you never want to not deliver. You always want to make sure that you're giving what you already promised. And then maybe you have to go back to that person and say, hey, let me see if I can move some things around, or find an additional resource. So it's really about assessing overall where you are with your resources, and trying to make a situation for someone just a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. It's really about those boundaries, setting appropriate boundaries for yourself. And so I tell people all the time that boundaries are not for the other person. The boundaries are for you, right? And so as a healer, as a person that I work in the mental health space all the time, there are always going to be things that show up. And so I have to always make sure I'm doing what? Putting on my mask first, right? To make sure that I am taking care of myself, that I am healthy, happy, whole, healed, all of that good stuff, right? And then once I have the necessary boundaries put up, right, I can lower them or I can raise them however I need to, right, to make sure that I'm protecting me. Because if that $5 that I had was an extra $5, absolutely, you're more than welcome to having that, right? But if that $5 was supposed to be used for something that I needed or that a family member needed, right, having that understanding about that boundary, but then also really also having that conversation with the person, right? If I see them continually, perhaps building a relationship, right? Meeting the need first. We talk about this all the time in church, right? Like, I need to be able to meet the need first, and then, we can have those other conversations. But if that need is weighing on my boundary, then we can't keep doing this, right? Because now I'm losing oxygen from my own mask because I'm doing what? I'm taking it off and I'm giving it to you. And so really making sure that you have those boundaries in place for yourself, whatever that needs to look like for you, right? It's not for the other person. And then people will respond to those boundaries as necessary.
Yeah, I agree with what they said. I think, boundaries and really keeping things within structure is so important. I love that she said, put the mask on yourself first. You have to pour into your own cup first, and understanding that you can only give what's in your cup. As someone who mentors, coaches, and speaks, one of the things that I found was one of the biggest influences, one of the biggest things you can do is live what you preach, right? So it would do nothing if you're a therapist or you're a social worker and you're telling people to put up boundaries and you're not doing that for yourself. They're gonna say, hey, you don't practice what you preach. Why should I listen to you? So I think the biggest thing you can do is understand your limitations, understand what's in your cup and what you can give and what you can't give. But most importantly, practice what you preach. Make sure you're journaling, make sure you're meditating, make sure you're taking care of your mental health serious. And along my journey in doing that, I've had people unexpectedly, come up to me and ask me, hey, I'm struggling with this. How would I, go about this and go about that? And, you know, luckily one was my father, who we've had a hard relationship. I've had a hard relationship with him throughout the years. Um, and that was like a testimony to, hey, the biggest thing you can do really is just practice what you preach. So.
Thank y'all so much, because that really helped me a lot. I'm still working on like creating healthy boundaries. And I know all of y'all, who said MSU. Now I'm a MSU student, Morgan State. And so like, yes, I'm so happy. And that's like I'm in this leadership class, and that was one of the subjects that we was talking about, like having healthy boundaries. So I think, and learning that, but also, like y'all said, meeting people where they at and not, overly extending yourself, but having them wanting the help, and then y'all coming in and stepping in and being that support system. So Zion, next question, please.
Okay, you guys. So the next question is, Ania really spoke on it. Like, as youth, we want to do more. We want to help more. So what can we do to spread more awareness about like mental health or like things like this, like human trafficking, but address it in the correct way? Because everyone, like me, Naeem, and Ania had the training from Haya to address stuff in the correct way, but some people don't have that training. So how can you spread that awareness like the correct way, healthy way, and positive way also?
Yeah, this is a great question, and something that is super important, because peer-to-peer conversations are the most effective way to get any message across. And so when it comes to youth, spreading information youth to youth is so vital. And it's important that we share the right information, because I can sit here and tell someone who is much younger than me or has different experiences than me the information I have, but it's not going to land the same. And that's why I love this organization so much, because it is such a vital tool to getting the information across to all of our youth. And, that is the most effective tool at getting information to our youth by our youth. And the important factor to remember when you are talking to friends, peers, things like that is, again, when we have a situation, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to any kind of victimization, every story is unique. And so it may not be a similar situation, but there are certain components of it that resonate with youth when you are having that peer-to-peer conversation. And so it's really important to support one another in healing, in trusting adults and things like that. And language really matters as well. The language that we use when we're describing situations, making sure that we don't put any blame on those that are hurt, those that are healing, and really just having a cohesive message that is on every level shareable.
Absolutely. So, using the platforms that you have available to you, I think the generation now has way more microphones than any other generation before them has ever had access to. And so, sharing with your peers about mental health, sharing your story, being vulnerable in some spaces, but also watching it, right? So, we have data was recently released that on platforms such as TikTok, we have young people that think that are watching shorts and videos and things of that nature, and are saying, "Well, now I have bipolar disorder, or now I have borderline personality disorder," and then instead of the traditional depression and anxiety. And so my higher youth know how I feel about having the appropriate language and having a shared language and knowing the definitions of what it is that you are experiencing. And so making sure that you also fact check what you share, right? And so if you are experiencing with the healing process with a therapist, or if read something really awesome, it's okay to share that, but make sure that you're sharing appropriate and factual information with each other, and that you have somebody trusted that you can go to check on it with. And so sharing it on your social media, blog posts, being honest about your experiences, and even sharing within your friend group, like when you hit up the group chat, what are we doing to center ourselves today, you all? Here's a really great motivational message that I've heard, because that kind of information spreads quicker than, anything less positive, right? So being able to share that within your group first, and then also to the wider audience. And so things like Not for Sale Youth is doing that, right? So we know one of the other principles of resiliency and the principles of healing that a really great researcher, Dr. Carl Bell, shares is that people experience things, right? Things that may be traumatic or awful or just yucky and bad, right? And then once they heal from it, they create really amazing programs and nonprofits, and do public speaking and sharing out of that pain. So out of that adversity, be prepared after you are healed first. You have those boundaries up. You're putting on your mask that you're going to share that and then making a dent in the world, right? So it's incumbent upon us to not just heal within ourselves, right? But then helping other people to become better. And so that's how you can start to make that difference. Even if it's just from one person or 1,000 people, you've made an impact in your world and in your space.
Before Mr. Julius go, I just wanted to emphasize on making sure y'all getting textual things, because I know even with like COVID and things like that, y'all see something and y'all straight believe it when it comes on TikTok and Instagram and things like that. So make sure it's factual, even like that just goes around the whole spectrum, y'all. And I just want to emphasize that so much, because I cannot believe everything I see on social media. But Mr. Julius can go.
Nah, thanks for saying that, because yeah, people out here they trolling, they trying to get some clout and not spitting factual information. Um, I love what I heard so far, and I agree. Transparency is one of the biggest things you can do. And I think one of the things that I learned, which was huge, is not getting so caught up into diagnosis. As she said, sometimes we'll look up something and our symptoms match, our experiences match, and we'll be like, oh, well, I have this and I have that, and ultimately that's not as important for you as it is, you know, as they say, treating the symptoms, right? Dealing with the experience. And, as youth, I love what you guys are doing. Keep doing that and be as transparent as possible. Heal completely and go out and show them, hey, look, it's possible. It's possible. And one big one, you're not alone. So
Hill first mover, would you like to go?
Hey guys, I completely agree with what everyone said, honestly, because that's what my movement is based off of, is healing first and then being able to heal others through what we say, what you post, and how you feel, like just being completely honest, but not being too honest so that someone's able to attack when you're like the most vulnerable. So I completely agree with what everyone said, honestly.
actually have like not a question, but like sorry for like stutter or not having all my thoughts together, but I have a issue, not an issue, but like sometimes how do you like not deal with someone, you know, as a, I can't speak for a whole human race. This is, how can I say it? Okay, me personally, I know I'm not as vulnerable as I should. And yes, you know, everyone goes through, you know, their own trauma. Like trauma is how, you know, trauma is what people identify with, like what they've been through. And every trauma looks different to everyone. And so you might have those people who, you know, been through something and don't want to share it, or you might have someone who went through something and wants to share it so much because they want to help, you know, everyone else. But I think sometimes, like you say, like sometimes I say to myself, like, well, my trauma is different from their trauma. So yes, my story might help them, but they're gonna have to identify ways how they can deal with their own trauma. So like, and being vulnerable and sharing your story, how can, you know, uh you have some people who attack you and talking about your trauma. Then you have those people who will understand you and empathize with you, but then come at you at the same time. So like, how do we balance the vulnerability and sharing our story just not with our friends and family, but you know, out with the whole world? Like how Miss Shamira McKenzie came on and talked about her story. That was, you know, not everyone can do that, and then turn it into, you know, something so big. So as youth who go through stuff on a daily, and how we want to help, but how can we help without, you know, being so vulnerable but still being transparent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that that is very much a personal question that everyone has to ask themselves, right? So, like, if you are the type of person that can tell your story, and when people do attack you, because we don't, you know, we can't control other people's response reaction, right? But that's yours. That is yours, and they can't attack you. But if you are that type of person that's going to internalize other people's comments about how you are coping, then maybe that's something that you need to keep closer to your chest, right? So that maybe you're at a point where you do only feel comforted or comfortable sharing those stories or those situations or experiences with your friends and family, because you know, we know how certain individuals may react, but we can't control outside individuals. But if you're someone who can just not completely disregard what other people's comments are, because you know this is your journey, this is your story, and this is your healing path, then that's something that you are able to do. So I think it's very individual to that person and how they feel about where they are in their healing path.
I agree. It's completely your level of comfort, right? So I one day went on Facebook Live and talked about my battle with depression and anxiety, and I got all kinds of love from strangers and people that I don't share chromosomes and blood with, right? And my own family was the ones that started spreading things and saying stuff all the way in North Carolina, like, yo, I ain't heard from you in how long, right? And so I didn't internalize it because I was like, I know that I was supposed to share that story, right? I think, and Miss Shamir kind of displayed this earlier, that she said 15 years ago, if you would have asked me if I would have been here sharing, I would have said hell no, right? But now I can, right? And so it took time. That vulnerability takes time, right? So something that I may not have shared in my 20s and my 30s, I'm like, oh well, right? In my 40s and my 50s, right? You know, the older people get, you get less of a, a filter, right? And so they're like, it doesn't happen, I'm good with it. And so just thinking about, your, to Kimmy's point, your level of feeling comfortable sharing it and what that feedback might be, But if you feel like you're called to share your story, or if you feel led to share it, you got to share it. And you deal with it from there. And so vulnerability is a process. It does not happen overnight. Don't expect for it to happen overnight. There's just, as time goes on, you'll get a little bit more comfortable.
Before Mr. Julius goes, um, I agree with Miss Kim and Miss Nia. I knew what I was about to say, but it's gonna come back to me. So I'm gonna throw it back right back to Miss Julius. It's gonna come back. I don't know. My brain lagging for a minute.
Yeah, no, I think that um, they say where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? And I was diagnosed with social anxiety, and so as a speaker, it's very difficult for me. And I remember uh, in my first few times speaking, um, I had a young lady come up to me and said that before she heard my story, she was having suicidal thoughts, and it really helped. And we sat down afterwards, went out and got some lunch, and we talked for hours. And I remember leaving that conversation just feeling like, wow, like who would have thought my story would have potentially possibly inspired her to, I mean, save her life possibly, you know? So I understand it's uncomfortable. What you guys sign up to do, it's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to feel comfortable. This is literally when you talk about fighting the stigma and fighting, the people out there that have negative intentions or bad, don't understand. Let's be real, don't understand what mental health is. They're gonna come at you. So my advice would be to heal, work on yourself, and get to a place where you are comfortable sharing your story, because people do need you.
It came back to me. I was about to say, I know sometimes historical trauma can have an effect on people with sharing their stories, especially within the Black community, and also like how historical trauma in certain parts in the community makes them not want to go to therapy. Like, sometimes they say, you go through stuff, life continues, and you move on. You sweep it under the rug. But, dealing with undealt trauma can build up for so long, and it can affect you, your mental health, and how you might, respond to certain things. That's what I was trying to make a point on saying, like, being vulnerable at the same time, but how historical trauma and dealing with your own trauma plays a real big part in that. So there we go. My brain started working again. Okay, there we go. We have one more question, Zion. You can ask that question, and then we're gonna move on.
Real quick, could I speak on that one?
Of
I
course.
was
So the summer of 2020, I think it was well before 2020, it was my senior year. I had lost my girlfriend, and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, which is raining and murder right now among teenagers. So within that happening in June, by the time it was time for me to go to school in August, I had went to 9 more funerals. And at first, my mom was like, "We're not really gonna do the whole therapy thing. You're gonna have to cope with it. Things happen, life happens. We're just gonna have to move from it." And with my mom being my best friend, because my mom had me very young, it was like, how could you care about me and see that I'm mentally drowning within losing all of my friends, and you still telling me like no therapy, just work through it. And it took me a while to be able to tell my girlfriend's story. It took me a while to be able to tell all of my friends' stories, because it's like it's normal in Kentucky. It's normal for you to wake up and look on Instagram and see that another one of your friends has been killed due to senseless violence and stuff like that. So honestly, within speaking your truth and being vulnerable, you just have to speak your truth and live in it. And you have to become comfortable to where if somebody comes at you from it, you're so comfortable with yourself and so confident in your story that it doesn't even matter, because you know that you're speaking your truth. And if you know that you're speaking your truth in your head, nothing that no one can say will be able to bother your truth, because that's honestly your story.
Yes, thank you for that. And definitely thank you for sharing like your personal experience and things like that when it comes to trauma and healing. So our last question is, how can we help people who struggle when going through traumatic events? It can be like a kind of self-reflection type of question, but also a question that you can give advice to other people. Because I know it's times where as youth, somebody's telling us they've gone through something, we don't know how to handle that because one, we didn't experience it yet, and two, it's just like I don't know what to tell them, or I never experienced this, or this is too traumatic. Like now I'm in a downfall, if that makes sense. So how can we help people cope, like healing first movement, cope with what they've gone through and helping them out, just in case they don't have that access to like therapy and things like that.
I would say first and foremost, know what you have the capacity to do. If you do not have the capacity to provide certain things, do not pretend to. And it could be a situation where it's your friend, a family member, or a complete stranger on the internet reaches out to you and is like, I only feel comfortable talking to you. If you do not have the capacity to provide them with what they need, you have to be very honest and upfront about that. The second thing I will say that was probably the best piece of advice that another professional gave me was their trauma, their journey, their story is not about you. And you cannot take on and make it about you. You cannot get frustrated if a challenge arises and they don't react in a positive way, or they are facing personal setbacks. That is not something that you can make about you. And so just make sure that when they are in the healing process and you are supporting them, if something happens, and let's say substance abuse or with human trafficking, there is a relapse, or someone goes back to your friend, family member, anyone goes back to their trafficker, know that that has nothing to do with you. And when they come back to you tomorrow and need you, be there for them. Be there for them, no strings attached, because again, it's not about you. It's about how you can support this individual. And remember that healing is a journey and there's no conclusion.
Absolutely. So, I always talk about building relationship first. And so sometimes, even as, people put this burden on therapists that we're supposed to have these really dope one-liners that you can then go tweet to your friends. And that's not always the case, right? Sometimes we just have to have a posture of listening. And so I think that's appropriate for you all as well. If a peer comes to you and they're having they have a concern, they have a question, they're going through something, sometimes it's just being that listening ear. Look, I don't have the answer, right? But I am certainly here for you and happy to listen. But do not, under any circumstances, put an S on your chest and a cape on your back and think that you have to have a responsibility for that person's life. Because if you do that, that's an impossible contract, right? We have a responsibility to each other, right? Kind of in this community space, right? So listening, providing resources, giving information. If you see something really great about the Black Mental Health Alliance or Mentally Wealthy or Heal First Movement, you're more than welcome, of course, to send people resources. But if you put that cape on to think that you have a responsibility to keep this person alive or to keep something from ever happening to them ever again, you're going to fail, right? Because you're human and so are they. And so instead of doing that, building that relationship, being an open ear, right? If that person wants to talk, being able to provide resources for all the things, all the nuggets, all the jewels and gems that Miss Joni drops, or that, any other organization drops, and just kind of sending that to somebody is a start, right? And then being able to say, hey, I don't have the capacity for this, but I'd love to help you to get to a therapist. I'd love to help you if you're a young person at Heart Smiles. I'd love to help you get a wellness check-in with the Black Mental Health Alliance so that they can then help you get what you need. But I am not Superman. I'm not Superwoman. I'm not super anything, right? But I'm here for you. And I think that's a great start.
I'm so glad that you pointed that out, Miss Nia. Like, going in with a mindset of like, yes, aiming, to help helping, the best way that you can, but not putting a high expectation on yourself, thinking that you can save someone, because it's impossible for you to save every single body. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let Mr. Julius go. My mom, was a case worker. She was the supervisor for the intake unit at DJS, and before that, she was the supervisor for the female intervention program, which was a part of the juvenile justice system as well. And one case, it was two cases that she told me about, but one case that really spoke out to me was that she had a young lady who was going through drug abuse and sexual abuse, and she had a baby at a very young age, and she got into the program, and my mom mentored her, got into programs, therapy, help with the family and whatnot, and she was getting right back on her feet. One day she went to a party, and you know how sometimes when you leave your past life behind, sometimes it never really leaves, because some people just don't want you to be great. Some people don't want you to move on. Some people expect you to stay in a place where you was at and just stay there and let you die there. And that's what happened. She went to a party and someone killed her, straight bullet to the head, and put a pillow behind her, and people thought she was asleep. She was only maybe 19 years old, and a young African American female, doing so great, and someone killed her. Another case, something similar happened like that, and they left her body close to East Point Mall on a construction site. Didn't find her body until maybe a couple months later. And it's just so sad that our young people trying to get their lives back together, and people who are supporting them and trying to help them. It's hard to accept, like, man, I wish we did everything that we can, but some stuff we just can't. We don't have control over people's actions. And so that's what I'm trying to as a young female, and as a mentor to some other young people, I have to like say that to myself, like, I'm gonna do everything that I can, but you're gonna have to put some work in it too. But I can't be your superhero. And so I'm so happy that you said that, Miss Nia.
Yeah, no, I think what you guys said was head on. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can get that urge, and sometimes you feel like, hey, I have to fix somebody, and you don't. That's not your job at all. I love what you guys said about one of the most important things you can do is listen half the time, or most of the time is listen. I have a method that I use to kind of remind myself and um, help be there for loved ones. And I share with my people I coach and my mentors. My mentees, that it's called "I'm Here," right? Um, and the I stands for identify the experience or the symptoms that they're battling with. Again, try not to diagnose them. The M stands for meet them where they're at, right? And that's really trying to be compassionate and say, what does this person need in this moment that I can provide them with? Um, and the H stands for have the conversation when they're ready. Not try to force people to talk, you know, and that can be difficult sometimes, but you have to be patient and take it at the person's pace. And then the E, while you're having the conversation, evaluate the risk, right? And what I mean is like the risk for harm to themselves or others. And when I was getting certified in mental health first aid, it was interesting that they said that just because someone says that they feel like um, or they've had suicide thoughts doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to commit the act, right? So make sure we know what to look for as far as, hey, somebody's actually going to, or it's a strong possibility someone's going to go through with the act versus someone not going through with the act. So evaluate the risk while you're having the conversation. And then the R is reflective listening. I think this is the most important part. And that is, really listening for understanding. Literally say sometimes, hey, when you're having a conversation with someone, say, hey, look, so what I heard you say was XYZ. And if the answer is no, if the person's like, hey, this isn't what I meant, that's not what I meant, let them talk again. Your job here is to get an understanding of what they're saying and just provide support in the best way you can. And then finally, the E is encourage. And I love what Kimmy said starting off, knowing what you can provide for them. You're not trying to be their therapist. You're not trying to be their counselor. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that you have nothing to give them, right? Encourage them to get the help they need, right? Going to a therapist, going to a counselor. But also sometimes you'd be surprised. Sometimes just encourage them to move, you know, just to get out of the house. My my cousin recently, early last year, lost his father. You know, and my cousin's like a brother to me, and his father was like another father to me. And there was multiple times throughout the year where I would just call him and he would just talk for hours. I hardly said anything. And at the end of that, sometimes I would just say, "Hey, look, let's go grab a bite to eat." And it did wonders for him. So encourage them to do sometimes the little things. If you know someone's battling depression, and they haven't cleaned their house, just come over. Listen to, after you have that conversation with them, they want to lay down in bed. Maybe clean their house for them. Maybe help them clean their house. You don't have to be Superman. You don't have to put the cape on, as she said. So that's a method I use to help me and remind me of things to do and how I can show up and lend support to loved ones. The I'm here method, and it was something that I kind of acquired through getting certified in mental health first aid.
Can I say one more thing? Also, understand that, especially here in Baltimore, there is a huge network. And if I know I cannot provide something, I will literally tap into everyone in my network and say, hey, I need you. Because it does take a village. It takes a village. The healing process, it's not narrow-minded in the sense that one person, like we've all been saying, can do everything. And so there are different aspects, and understand that, like, always tap into your network. That is the biggest resource anyone can have is, hey, I need you to reach out to your team, your village, because this is what I'm looking for, and this is what I need. And, I think that some people often are very reserved in the sense that they won't tap into what we all as a collective have the capacity to do. Because we can move mountains together, but, separately, it's kind of just like bite-sized pieces. But together, we can just change the world.
I agree with everyone as well about being the superhero because sometimes we try so hard to be the superhero, not realizing that even superheroes can't save everyone. And in the day, you end up draining yourself trying to be there for everyone and everybody. And I think that we should start giving people, like, helping them understand that you need to find a reason. But as those that are here to help, we got to understand that we cannot be that reason because sometimes we're not even that reason for ourselves. And then another thing that I work on with my group is hearing versus listening because sometimes we get so active in hearing to where when we hear them, we just want to act instead of listening because when you listen to somebody, honestly, you end up realizing they have the answers to their issues within what they're telling you. They just needed someone to sit there and listen to it and help them understand and analyze what's going on.
I think everyone, really appreciate y'all honesty and transparency through the questions that we ask. And what that I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw in a little comment right here. I've been watching a whole lot of Grey's Anatomy. But McDreamy said, "What a great day to save lives, people. But we can't save everybody. We can only do so much." So again, we appreciate you, Miss Kim from Fiercely Loving Yourself. Thank you, Mr. Julius from Mentally Wealthy. And thank you, Miss Nia Jones from Black Mental Health Alliance. And thank you from the Heal First Movement. We appreciate all of y'all. And I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all evening.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We almost done, y'all. We ain't gonna keep you way too long. You're gonna hear from me. I think I do better in video than speakings. So we're gonna show this one last thing, and then we're gonna have one more guest speaker that everyone been waiting for, and then we're gonna close out. Okay, y'all can turn off your cameras.
And I'm founder and CEO of Nursery. As you know, we celebrate our
first kickoff event, and it was totally new to me. I never ran a program before, and so for people who don't know me, I'm 18. I went to Reginald F. Lewis High School, graduated in 2021, and it was like super dope. And so when I started, not for sale, I never knew what a grant was, never knew what came into a nonprofit. So I kind of took my chance at it, and I applied for philanthropy, and I got fully funded $11,500, and that's how I started my project, and I started doing events, and I was out in the community, and I was making partners, and people was looking at me like, you had this young black girl from the city who probably don't got nothing but her name, and probably a dollar in her pocket, but I'm still standing, representing, not for sale. And so it was a rough year due to my mom being sick and recently losing her on August 30th. When I did my first event, it was back in March, and she was in the hospital, and March was also my birthday month. So my father and my aunt FaceTimed her and recorded the whole event, and I remember her saying that she loved me and that she was very proud of me. And so growing up, I've always been a caregiver, and I hate saying it, but I grew up around, people who needed to be taken care of, specifically family members. So I've been a caregiver since the age of 7, and so I took care of my grandmother, and so she passed back in June in 2018, and then a year after that, my grandfather died. 2 years actually, a year and a half. He died in 2020. And I was helping take care of him and balancing school and trying to, stay busy with my work and my extracurricular activities that I was with. And then 6 months after that, my aunt passed. And then that's when my mom started getting sick. And so when dealing with so many consistent deaths, back to back, mental health became, really aware to me for me to take care of myself. And I am a healing youth ambassador for Healing Youth Alliance, and I started learning more about trauma-informed care, about depression, anxiety, PTSD, which all of those I suffer from. And so I was also sexually assaulted when I was younger, and I was also molested back in 2018 when I was 17 years old. Well, 16. I was 16 years old, turning 17. And so going through that, it made me a better person, actually. Some people thought, I wouldn't bounce back from that. But I took my pain and turned it into something so I can help other youth who have been through that. And that's why Not For Sale exists. And so losing my mom was the hardest thing I had to go through. Losing anyone is a hard thing to go through, but losing someone that is so close and connected to you is really hard. And so that gave me another reason to start Tony's art program. And so that's what this event is helping for, Tony's art program, to stay in existence, to help young people through a trauma-informed care approach through art, music, and dance. And so I'm actually about to do a small presentation on what I did back in September and recognizing my mother, and also back what I did in March. I am not suicidal. I'm not suicidal. I just lost my voice. I just gave all the love I had and just forgot me. I'm not suicidal. I just wanted to be loved, but we saw that love just isn't enough. So I cried myself to sleep, thinking to myself I want to end it all, but that's not all. I'm not suicidal. I'm just tired of breathing air that doesn't belong to me. Tired of waking up and having no hope. Tired of waking up to this fictional kind of love. Tired of hearing that everything is gonna be okay. I'm not suicidal, but if I could just stay asleep and choose not to wake up, I would. I'm not suicidal, but if I could end it all, I would. I'm not suicidal, but I lost all the family I knew and loved. So would it be that selfish if I realized I had nothing else to give when love stopped. I realized that love comes and goes, even if it's unconditional. It's spontaneous, yet damaging. It hits you when you least expect it. I died when the one thing that loved me died. It loved and lived when I died. I have nothing else to give. I burnt out. Like Whitney Houston, I have nothing. Like Anita Baker, no more tears. Like Aretha, ain't no way. Like Ben King, stand by me. How can I love when the love that was given to me left? How can I love if the one thing loved me died and now I'm dead but yet alive? I have nothing else to live for, but yet I'm still able to love. Love past the pain, the guilt, the betrayal. The love that loved me, I hurt the most. The scars, the tears, the blood, it wasn't worth it. By choosing life and not death, I'm in pain and I'm having nothing else to give. Alright, so what you just saw that we demonstrated with this saying is something that I done before back in September and represented my mom and wanted to keep her legacy alive. So each color saying represents something of life, because my mom always wanted to let people know to choose life, embrace life, and always do self-care. And so there's always life after traumatic experiences. And so the what you're saying represents hope. Like there's life after trauma, that there's still hope. And the pink, we are wrapped around youth with love and support. The yellow means go be that person you want to be. Go be bright. Be that star. And the purple represents you are born with purpose. You were naturally designed to come in this life and fulfill a mission for you to, whether that's helping other people or whether it's just going out there and bringing awareness to something, but you are born with purpose. So remember that. Okay, y'all. That was me. And we're about to close out. But before we close out, I want to bring on Miss Joni from Heart Smiles MD. Did that rhyme? Did I do that like a G? Because Miss Joni is the one who spits all them jewels and the eight. And I'm not a rapper, but I was trying to say, I don't know, but you already know everybody loves Miss Joni. She be dropping them jewels, be making me wake up early in the morning, 6 something in the morning, 7. I'm like, how she wake up every day? And I be struggling. I'm like, out of school, I can't sleep. But this woman be up working. But I'm so happy and I'm so in love and everything. How Miss Joni works and Heart Smiles and everyone, Miss Zion and Naeem and there's some other heartbeats in the chat. We all appreciate you, Miss Joni. So what's the jewel of the day? We waiting.
Man, you are the jewel. Like, seriously, like if we were to look up the definition of growth right now, your name and picture would be beside that. Because just thinking about where you came from versus where you are now, like it truly is an inspiration. And it's not too many people that I give up my Saturday for, because it's already hectic Monday through Friday. So it's not too many people that I give up my Saturday for, but this was worth it. And I'm just so proud of you and just really so excited and humbled to be able to have one of those front row seats, to be able to watch you grow and to watch you do this and to inspire other young people. Like, we've had some really hard conversations over the years, some really hard some really hard conversations. But one thing that I appreciate about you and that I love about you is that you always are able to take the lesson, take whatever situation, do something better with it and build on it. So just thank you for your mission. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for pulling in other young people. I'm excited to see Mr. Elaborator and Trackstar still hanging on with you and just pushing this. And as far as I know, ain't no other young person in this space doing this and doing it like how you doing it. So it's like you are literally paving the way and opening up doors, and for any other young people who are struggling and asking themselves, like, can I do it? Can I really overcome my challenges? Can I chase my dreams? You can look at Ania and the answer is yes, all day. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Joni. Like, I really do appreciate that. I remember those curse outs, but it was totally worth it, man. It was totally worth it. And I'm just like, man, I can't. The one thing I still remember is you getting on top of me how I ruined that photo. I think that happened right before COVID, too. I was in the straight middle headshot. I was like,
Yep, our Christmas picture. You ain't want nothing to do with no hard smile. You ain't want to be there. And somebody dragged you in there. And I was all like, they was complaining about your attitude. I was like, don't worry about it. Like, people got to come around on their own. So, like, the conversation that y'all were having when y'all were talking about, like, how you can't help everybody and, you know, you got to give people space and stuff, like, that really resonates with me because that's my life, like, every single day. So I really appreciated, like, that part of the conversation. But she was complaining about your attitude. And I'm like, look, if she gonna come around, she gonna come around. And if she don't, then you did your part. You bought her here. And then now look at you. They done fell off. And here you go thriving.
say that again. Say that again. We ain't gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna talk about that. But the growth is so real. We don't, excuse the background noises. You know, life be life. You know what I'm saying? And people gonna be people. But thank you, Miss Joni. Zion, you got any last words? Naeem, y'all got anything to say to our beautiful young people in these streets?
Well,
I just wanted to. Oh, my bad.
my bad. I was ready to say, well, I'm glad everyone came here today. You know, actually, because this is a Saturday. Like, everybody don't want to be up during the weekend. Like, everybody trying to go to sleep. Everybody trying to do such and such. But I'm glad, like, people actually came out, that way to, tune in with us. So we're glad you came. We hope you got something out of this because, not youth like us, like, not for sale. Always talk about, like, you don't always hear human trafficking when it comes to youth, and especially coming from youth. And not only that, y'all getting this for free. Do y'all realize that y'all getting it for free? We don't even be asked for a dime. We doing it for free. So, and it's on a Saturday. And we started from 11 in the morning to afternoon. Come on, man. Like, we ain't doing for nothing, yeah.
Preach, Naeem. Preach, Mr. Elaborator. I'm telling y'all, next year, this ain't gonna be free. This ain't gonna be free next year. So get it now while you can. I'm letting you know. I'm letting you know. Keep that in mind. Zion, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let you go. But let them know, Zion. Let them know. Not for sale is priceless. We are priceless. But things cost money to run things. Go ahead, Zion.
Yes, I wanted to say that because I was surprised when Ania was like, "Oh, we're just gonna change it to free." I was like, "Now, Ania, because y'all got a lot of information. My bad. We got the top people on here today, and I just want to thank y'all for joining. And thank y'all for like signing up and things like that because it was a little stressful, definitely on Ania, and I just want to thank Ania for keeping us on her team, even though we had our times through this year, at our times. But I just want to thank you for being a part of this amazing group and things like that. And I just want to thank Ania because she's definitely doing a lot when it comes to Not For Sale and the Tony Art Program. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram at Not For Sale Youth. And Not For Sale Youth Boss Be More, right? I'm always forgetting the word. But yeah, thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all so much. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Saturday. It's 1:38. Y'all got the rest of the evening. Go do something great. Be productive. Go shine bright. And remember that you are not for sale. We're going to see y'all next time.